I've been keeping an eye on Evan for years. For his diva, he made my right ear go deaf. Light as a feather, he snapped my finger bones. After I dipped out, he whipped up a tune for me. The main melody packed with 88 keys saying goodbye to the past. On the night it dropped, he hid razor blades inside the piano. As the piece wrapped up, the blood from his injured fingers soaked the entire keyboard red. Evan knelt down before me. Lily, I'm offering you my hand. Can you forgive me? How doesn't he get it? I'm never looking back again. The day I won the contest, Evan slapped me so hard I lost hearing in my right ear. Little did I know, that slap was just the start. On the big stage, applause roared like a wave. Out of the corner of my eye, Evan threw the flowers meant for me at his feet. People walking by trampled them, and the bouquet shattered instantly in the dirt. Evan turned to chase after Mia, who fell apart in the dirt. He ran after her, and she struggled and cried in his arms. In a quiet corner, the two hugged tightly, and Evan silenced her tears with a kiss. I watched this scene from the stage, feeling as messed up as that broken bouquet. After the show, Evan didn't congratulate me. Instead, he gave me a brutal slap. I fell to the ground, my cheek burning, my ear ringing. Disgust filled Evan's face as he held Mia, who was crying. His mouth moved, his voice weak, almost angrily questioning. Who gave you the right to take Mia's chance by using shady means? Tears welled up in my eyes, and I shivered all over. With that slap, my right ear couldn't catch any sound anymore. Ignoring the pain in my cheek, I crawled towards Evan, pleading with him. My right ear can't hear. Please, take me to the hospital. Impatiently, he pushed my hand away, leaving me sprawled on the ground. What new trick are you playing? Those who do wrong should pay the price. Mia shook Evan's hand on the side, gently trying to calm him down. Evan grabbed the trophy from my arms and smashed it on the ground. The crystal shattered, its broken pieces piercing my palms. Blood flowed from between my fingers. The two walked away hand in hand. Mia turned back, flashing me a smug smile. Evan doesn't care about the truth. He only cares if Mia was wronged. He doesn't know that Mia, being all high and mighty, ordered me to change the tough memories of Kylie. He doesn't know that the jade cup, filled with scalding tea, was intentionally broken by Mia. He has no clue that Mia did all this to frame me. He's only willing to believe that I was jealous of Mia and used dirty tactics to hurt her. A contestant who burned their hand but still competed is honorable even in defeat. Mia successfully gained Evan's sympathy and affection. I became the villain who'd stop at nothing to win. After that slap, my right ear couldn't hear anymore. Evan's dad made him come and apologize to me, but Evan's face was stiff and cold. Lily, you just know how to act pitiful in front of my dad. Are you satisfied now? I cut off whatever he was going to say next. Evan, how did you become like this? With all my strength, I asked my final question. If Mia says something, you believe it, right? Evan sneered disdainfully. I saw it with my own eyes. What are you trying to argue? Are you overestimating yourself? He chuckled, resentment all over his face. If I knew you were this kind of person, I wouldn't have let you into the Harper family in the first place. My eardrum ruptured, the deep part of my ear still leaking pus and blood. This pain was nothing compared to those words, twisting my heart like a knife. Evan hates me, resents me, humiliates me for Mia. But in the beginning, it wasn't like that between us. When I was 10, my father died suddenly in front of the piano. I moved into the Harper family, becoming an adopted child, sitting on the couch clutching the hem of my clothes. That's when Evan came, handing me an orange, sitting at the piano playing me a piece to soothe my fear and timidity. That day, his camel-colored sweater felt extra soft. Don't be afraid, Lily. I'll take good care of you in the future. I didn't tell him that he played 2 wrong notes in Chopin's masterpiece. In fact, I played the piano better than Evan. Maybe inheriting my father's genes, 2 years younger than Evan, I played much better than him. Who would have thought our Lily was actually a piano genius? Evan's dark eyes were full of laughter and approval, blushing at his praise. The kids around chased me, throwing stones and making faces, mocking me for being an orphan. It was Evan who beat them up, bringing them over to apologize to me. Lily's not a homeless wild child, she's mine. I watched Evan's fist, bleeding from broken skin, and tears fell from my eyes. Uncontrollably, I fell in love with Evan. He stitched up my shattered wounds like a beautiful dream from the heavens, until Mia showed up, slowly breaking that dream. A few days later, at Evan's birthday bash, I sat alone in a corner. Footsteps approached from behind, Mia mocking me as she stared at the hearing aid in my right ear. Maliciously, she leaned in close to my ear, speaking directly into the hearing aid. Just a parasite under someone else's roof? What are you competing with me for? Mia was trying to provoke me on purpose, clenching my fist tightly, staying silent. Seeing my lack of response, she forcefully pulled the hearing aid out of my ear, her face twisted with malice. A person deaf in one ear isn't worthy of being a pianist, you little deaf girl. She provocatively let go, and the hearing aid fell from her palm to the ground, shattered into pieces. I stood up abruptly, wanting to slap her, but my wrist was tightly grabbed by someone. Evan appeared just in time, Mia's eyes immediately turning red. Evan, I didn't mean to. I was just concerned about her ear. Evan's grip tightened, almost breaking my wrist. Lily, if you throw another tantrum, get out of the Harper family. I couldn't help but laugh, tears sliding down my cheeks, a hint of sadness. Evan, do you feel no guilt at all for my deafness? This question only left him stunned for 2 seconds. He slightly furrowed his brow, a mix of conflict and pain flashing across his face. He closed his eyes for a moment, reopening them with indifference. Without hesitation, he reached for Mia's hand. His shiny shoes stepped over the shattered pieces on the floor, crushing my heart into pieces. Evan and Mia played a duet performing a wedding in a dream for the guests. Everyone understood without words, guessing that they were about to announce good news. Evan's dad watched with a furrowed brow, tapping his cane, and then stood up to go upstairs. Before leaving, I handed Evan his birthday present. Considering the years of care he had shown me, I felt grateful. Inside were 18 prayer beads, which I personally polished for half a year. The hands that play the piano are so precious, my fingers blistered from the polishing. Though my heart is filled with hatred and resentment now, I genuinely wish for his safety and well-being. Evan didn't even bother to look at it before letting someone else take it, but Mia insisted on seeing what it was. As the wrapping was torn open and she saw the prayer beads, a hint of mockery flashed in her eyes. So beautiful. I want them too. Let's match as a couple. Evan gently touched her head. We, Mia, deserve the best. Such a cheap thing isn't suitable for you. He broke the prayer beads, raised his hand, and threw them far away with a splash. The prayer beads I polished for half a year shattered and sank to the bottom of the fountain. Evan treated them like trash. I turned around with a blank face and walked away. Soft and gentle murmurs came from behind. Lily seems angry. Go and calm her down. Evan's cold, harsh voice rang out. Leave her alone. She's just crazy. I hated how sharp my left ear's ability to catch sounds was at that moment. As I was about to go downstairs, Mia caught up with me from behind and called out, Lily? Without looking back, I kept walking forward, and she let out a sharp, sarcastic laugh. What a good name, really suits you being deaf like this. When I was a kid, my father held me on his knee and played the piano for me to listen. He said he gave me this name to teach me to feel the music, to use my heart first and then my ears. This was the last symbol my father left for me, not to be tainted. I turned my head, eyes burning with fire. Say one more disgusting word, and don't blame me for tearing your mouth apart. Mia held back her resentment, then smugly reached out to fiddle with the rose brooch in front of me. Don't you want to know why Evan hates you so much? At this point, I no longer cared to know. The packing service had already been arranged, and tomorrow I would move out of the Harper family. I'd never see the two of them again. I was uninterested in passing by Mia, but she grabbed my hand and whispered in my ear, I can't tell you. Then she suddenly leaned back and fell down the stairs. With a loud noise, Mia fell below the steps. Her forehead was cut, a small trickle of blood flowing down. The crowd gasped, and Evan rushed over, his eyes red, picking her up and shouting to take her to the hospital. I stood there, cold, my head feeling like it was collapsing. The ICU light stayed on all night, and that night, Evan went mad. I was forced to kneel in front of Evan, his hand squeezing my throat, veins bulging. My face turned red, eyes bulging, feeling unable to breathe. Evan really wanted to strangle me alive. Cold tears welled up in my eyes, and seeing my tears, Evan released his grip. In the next moment, he seemed like a cold and heartless demon. "Which hand did you use to push Mia? Your right hand, right?" His shiny leather shoe stepped on my hand. Intense pain rushed over me. I couldn't help but cry out for mercy, cold sweat soaking through my clothes. The sound of bones crunching pierced my eardrums. Mia was saved, and I could no longer play the piano. Bone damage is basically irreversible. Dragging my suitcase out of the Harper house, my right hand in a cast and wrapped in thick bandages, Evan's dad handed me a bank card. "Lily, you've been through a lot." He began to cough violently, his silver-streaked temples trembling. I didn't take it, smiling and shaking my head. If it weren't for Evan's dad's years of nurturing, I would have definitely called the police to have Evan thrown in jail. Leaving the Harper house was not a compromise, but a break. Evan didn't show up. Evan's dad made him kneel all night, then ruthlessly beat him with a cane, rendering him unable to get up. I knew that behind the upstairs window, Evan was silently watching me leave. Passing by the lotus pond in the courtyard, I raised my good hand with force. A necklace shimmering with silver was thrown into the mud, perhaps to rot there until it rusted away. The action was a few degrees more efficient than Evan throwing the prayer beads. In my heart, I silently recited, "Such a shabby thing is not suitable for me." Shortly after arriving at the Harper house and losing my father, I fell ill, with a continuous high fever at night. Evan's dad went on a business trip out of town, leaving the house empty. It was Evan who carried me to the hospital. That night, he was sweating profusely as he ran several kilometers carrying me on his back, losing one of his shoes. The necklace was something he bought for me on the street after I woke up. He said dream catchers would bring me good things. Now for me, these were already trash. He would always choose Mia. At this point, I suddenly realized that the budding feelings of my youth had long been exhausted. I could have immediately paid off all the money I spent from the Harper family with the money in my hand. But I didn't want to. I had more important things. I wanted to ensure the best treatment for my right ear and hand bones. This is what Evan owes me, not the other way around. In the hospital, the doctor with cold eyes gently pinched my ear. His warm breath brushed against my neck, slightly tickling. I lowered my gaze uncomfortably, and his name tag came into view. Alex? What a good name. "Your ear and hand must not touch water. I'll prescribe some more antibiotics for you, and you must avoid spicy food." Dr. Alex took off his mask and carefully instructed me, revealing his face to me for the first time. The sunlight cast a glow on his stern and handsome face, his dark eyes revealing little. A hint of a delicate Adam's apple showed through his tightly buttoned collar. This was the city's most renowned surgeon, so young and handsome. I was momentarily blinded by the sunlight, and Alex stood up to close the blinds. "Until your hand fully recovers, you must not play the piano again, understood?" How did he know I played the piano? Before I could speak, I realized the meaning behind his words, my lips trembling uncontrollably. You mean there's a chance for me to recover?" A smile crept into Alex's eyes as he was backlit, giving him a golden halo. "Yes, I will find a way." After exchanging contact information, Dr. Alex reminded me to come for a follow-up appointment every week. The recovery period was long, but the cast was removed quickly. A scar marred the once delicate joints of my fingers. It was the mark of the stitches, somewhat unsightly. Deep down, I still cared a little. Unexpectedly, during one of my recovery sessions with Alex, he slipped a finger sleeve onto my hand. The scar was cleverly hidden. The finger sleeve had a pattern of a cloth tiger, lively and vivid. I couldn't help but chuckle. I never knew Dr. Alex had such a playful side. A passing nurse exclaimed, "Dr. Alex, did you specially buy this finger sleeve for Lily? How cute." Alex awkwardly clenched his fist and cleared his throat. "I bought it for my niece. It just happened that you needed it." His ears turned slightly red as he avoided my gaze. I thought, Alex is truly a gentle and caring person. 3 months had passed since I last saw Evan. Evan's dad asked me and Evan to attend a charity banquet on his behalf. Mia clung to Evan affectionately. "I'm his date for tonight. I hope Lily doesn't mind." I scoffed indifferently. Do you think I care about anything? After many days, this was the first time we met since that night. She and he shared a knowing look, as if nothing had ever happened before. I'm more carefree than I imagined. Evan's gaze seemed to pierce through me, his face showing a fleeting expression of pain and conflict. I have no relationship with Evan tonight. Mia pulled Evan to sit down first, pushing me behind. The host of the banquet opened a velvet box, revealing a necklace adorned with a sapphire. Its name, Shark's Tears, instantly flashed in my mind. It was the token of love my mother bought for my father. Mom had terminal cancer, and she wore this necklace in her final days. Dad had donated almost all of our assets to medical causes, including selling this necklace. After so many years, tonight I was determined to buy it back at any cost. Most of the people present were aware of my identity and kindly refrained from bidding against me. Mia glanced resentfully, shaking Evan's arm. So beautiful. I want it too. Let's match as a couple. Evan's expression turned grim, his back and neck stiffening. Forget about this one. I'll buy you something better. Mia bit her lip, coaxing and flirting in his ear, finally getting him to agree. She eagerly raised her bidding card, then provocatively looked back at me. Lily, although this necklace belonged to your mother, I also really like it. Can we compete fairly? I spent my hard-earned money. She spent Evan's money. Where's the fairness in that? My fingers beneath the hem of my skirt clenched together. Back then, she was also so arrogant, claiming she wanted to compete fairly with me. Then, on the day of our coming of age, when I dressed up meticulously, carrying the love letter for Evan, I pushed open the door to the music room. In the dim light, Mia embraced Evan from behind and kissed his cheek. Evan didn't refuse. Moonlight scattered on the ground. Through the crack of the door, Mia looked straight at me with a victorious smile. And so, I fled in despair. But that wasn't enough for Mia. She wanted to twist the knife in my heart once more. The next day, she cornered me in the music room, taunting me like a cat playing with a mouse. Evan has liked me for a long time. What do you have to compete with me? Fair competition? It was just me toying with you. From that day on, I forced myself to gradually let go of Evan. Today, I had long moved on. When Mia mentioned my mother, Evan's eyes darkened. Competition? What can Lily afford now? Without the Harper family, she's just a pauper. I can buy it for you too. Evan turned to meet my gaze, filled with sarcasm. Mia called out his name in disbelief. After you kneel at the piano and play a piece for Mia, I'll buy it for you. My knuckles turned white, my throat constricted. The piercing humiliation stirred up my overwhelming resentment and anger. Almost without any thought, I grabbed the red wine next to me and splashed it harshly. Amid Mia's exclamation, Evan was left drenched. The alcohol soaked his hair, dripping down his prominent nose. The red splatters on his white suit merged into one. The hall fell silent. Evan lifted his eyelids, his expression dark. He grabbed my arm. Lily, have you gone mad? A slender hand like jade grabbed Evan from the side, forcing him to release me. Are you the crazy one? She's injured and you're forcing her to kneel and play the piano? I looked at the newcomer's face in surprise. Dr. Alex? Alex didn't appear as gentle as he did in the hospital. He took off his white coat, the suit emphasizing a hint of reckless arrogance in his features. Also, please show some respect to my patient. Upon hearing me, Evan's face suddenly changed color, his eyes burning with rage. Does a doctor need to intervene in a patient's private matters? He emphasized private matters, his voice cold and cutting. Alex held my wrist, gently but firmly, and raised his hand to call security. A doctor may not have jurisdiction, but the hosts of this banquet do. The hosts of this banquet were none other than the prestigious Caldwell family in the circle. And Kyle, as he implied, was the medical genius from the illustrious Caldwell family. A glint flashed in Mia's eyes. She put on a perfect smile and extended her right hand. You must be the medical genius from the Caldwell family. A pleasure to meet you. Alex avoided Mia's hand, turned around, and led me away. Numerous eyes turned in our direction. My gaze lowered to the distinct knuckles on his wrist, my cheeks slightly flushed. Behind us, Evan angrily kicked over a chair. With a clatter, he pushed past security and Mia, striding out. I felt a sense of relief in my heart. Evan, you truly resemble a petulant clown now. Sitting next to Alex, I unconsciously fiddled with the finger sleeve on my hand. I apologize for disrupting this banquet. Alex turned his face, the fragmented light shining in his eyes, adding a touch of brilliance. No need to apologize. If I were you, I'd have slapped him. I pressed my lips together, quietly curling them into a smile. Back at the apartment building, Evan's car was arrogantly parked downstairs. I walked straight past without looking, and he rudely honked the horn loudly behind me. The sharp sound pierced my ears, and I instinctively covered my right ear uncomfortably. The car lights blinded me, and Evan rolled down the window. "Lily, get in." He gritted his teeth slightly. "My dad wants to see you." Evan's dad wanted to see me, so I obediently got into the car. Evan saw the necklace box through the rearview mirror, and his expression darkened once again. He tapped his index finger on the steering wheel, a sign of his impatience. "What's your relationship with Alex?" he asked. I closed my eyes, too tired to bother with him. Evan's eyes turned pitch black, his eyebrows furrowing imperceptibly for a moment. "Lily, why didn't you just stick to Alex tonight?" he sneered. "A person like Alex, you can't reach his level." I couldn't hold back and retorted, "Evan, if you have rabies and like to bite people, go get treated." Evan's face darkened, and he revved the engine angrily, as if jealousy filled him. It was ridiculous. He had no right to judge my relationship with Alex. In front of both of us, Evan's dad opened a dusty box. Inside was an old sheet music book, with a young photo of my mother clipped to it. Turns out, my mother was so beautiful before she got sick. Evan's dad, still not fully recovered, coughed twice and took a breath before speaking. "Your mother asked me to wait for the right time to give you this sheet music. Having kept it for so many years, today seems like the right time." Evan's dad gazed softly at me, as if seeing a similar person through me. Evan clenched his fists tightly, his knuckles cracking. His face turned purple, eyes widening in anger as he suddenly stood up from the sofa. "Having kept it for so many years, is it the wrong timing or just your own selfishness?" He leaned in, furiously sweeping the box, the sheet music, the photo, all onto the floor. I quickly crouched down to pick them up, a roar exploding in my ears. "Don't act all righteous. You divorced my mom just for this woman." The room fell into a deafening silence. Not even a pin drop could be heard. I remained in a half-crouched position, fingers tingling, a slight tremor running through me. Evan's dad started coughing violently, a hint of pity flashing in his eyes. "You've misunderstood me. I divorced your mom because of her mental illness, never because of someone else." In Evan's ashen face, I heard the truth. Evan's mother suffered from severe delusions and mania. At her worst, she imagined her husband cheating, even resorting to self-harm and attacking others. Evan overheard his parents arguing one day. Through a crack in the door, he heard his mother hysterically screaming, accusing her husband of falling in love with a friend's wife and bringing the friend's daughter into their lives. Evan's mother initiated the divorce, leaving behind her husband and child to seek treatment abroad. Staggering back, Evan's face displayed disbelief. His hands clenched the edge of the table, veins bulging, trying to steady himself. Pale lips trembling, he murmured, "Impossible? This can't be." Evan's eyes sharpened. "You lied to me. My mom has a mental illness. How did I not know?" Evan's dad sighed deeply. "This illness could possibly be hereditary. To spare you from psychological stress, your mother and I decided to keep it from you. Never did we expect you to be so misunderstood." Clutching his forehead, Evan's eyes turned crimson. "She clearly said she hates you, hates Lily's mother, hates her failed marriage. How could this be?" Tears welled up in Evan's dad's eyes. "It's because she wasn't in her right mind when she was ill." He pulled out diagnostic reports and records from a drawer. Trembling, Evan reached out to take them, almost dropping them. I stood by, witnessing the long overdue confrontation between father and son. Mia never told me why Evan hated me. Today I finally found the answer. Why his attitude changed. Why he hated me so much. Why that day I joyfully prepared a gift for him. only to be pushed to the ground. Get lost. From today, stay away from me. Why he turned so cold every time my mother was mentioned. But at this moment, I no longer cared. I just felt a sense of irony filling my heart. How ridiculous. Bending down to pick up the scattered items, nodding at Evan's dad, I walked out without looking back. A hand grabbed my arm, and Evan called my name softly from behind. Lily? His voice was filled with pain. I turned my head, calmly meeting his bloodshot eyes. Evan, from start to finish, you're just a complete idiot. That hand fell limp. I lifted my foot and passed him by. That night, I heard Evan smashed his own room to pieces. However, it was Mia who came to find me first. Lily, don't get too cocky. Having discovered the truth, Mia was no longer calm, appearing somewhat flustered. So what if it's a misunderstanding? I am still his goddess. I took a sip of coffee, crossed my arms, and stared directly into her eyes. Mia's emotions escalated. I was there for Evan during his most painful moments. I wrote him letters. We were about to get engaged. You can never replace me. I tucked my hair behind my ear, a hint of sarcasm in my smile. Did he know those letters were taken from me by you? During the time when Evan's parents were constantly fighting and divorcing, Evan was surrounded by despair and pain, and I wrote him letters. He rejected my attempts to approach him, so I had Mia pass them on, and that's how the letters were stolen. Evan detested me to the extreme. He wouldn't believe anything I said. Mia's expression went blank for a moment, and I continued. Mia, do you really love Evan? This question ignited the darkest thoughts in Mia's heart, and she exploded like a bomb. So what if I don't love him? What you have, Lily, I have every right to have. Mansions, luxury goods. Evan, I will take everything you have. With a click, the sound of the phone ending the recording echoed. I stood up in front of Mia's terrified eyes. You've schemed against me so many times. It's time for me to come back at you. A figure behind me swayed unsteadily. Evan's eyes, bloodshot, almost unable to stand, leaned against the sharp corner of the screen, his eyes glaring fiercely at Mia. I smirked and walked out, leaving Evan with red eyes and pale lips. A tear streaked down from the corner of his eye. Evan turned his head, trembling, blocking my path. He called my name, his trembling voice filled with a humble plea. Evan, those who do wrong must pay the price. I raised an eyebrow, calmly admiring his pain, taunting him in a low voice. These were your exact words that day. In the background, Mia's cries mixed with Evan's roars. Leaving the box, I tightly squeezed my palm with my fingers, leaving deep, red marks. I had to force myself to stay awake. I had to maintain enough calm and indifference. I had to appreciate Evan's failed attempts from a position of superiority. Evan, this is what you owe me. When I went for a follow-up appointment with Alex, I brought a vinyl of Chopin. Thanks for last time. I handed him the vinyl. I don't know if you like piano. Alex's pupils were clear, but at this moment, he stared at me with a depth that was hard to fathom. I once liked piano because of someone. I wanted to hear more from him, but Alex changed the subject. Hospitals do not allow doctors to accept gifts from patients. Most likely he was refusing. I felt a bit embarrassed, slightly awkward. My hand holding the vinyl froze in midair, neither giving nor taking. But last time, it was within the scope of our privacy, right? His fair hand rested on the edge of the vinyl, making it look like a gem. He eagerly awaited my response, even saying, deciding? His gaze was oppressive, as if it had substance falling on my face. Without thinking, my throat went dry. Yes, it's private. Alex flashed a moonlight-like smile at me and took the vinyl. Before the follow-up ended, I couldn't help but ask again. Dr. Alex, is there still a chance for me to recover? Alex avoided answering, pausing with the pen in his hand. Our eyes met. Lily. For the first time, he called me that. The air suddenly became hot. Something was fermenting. Hearing needs to catch up to the heart to feel your name. Is that what it means? This sentence was like a thunderbolt, triggering a flood of emotions in my heart. From the chaos, a ray of light broke through for me. Alex smiled again, with a joyful expression. Just as I arrived home, I was stopped downstairs by Evan. His face was pale, eyes sunken. Beneath his bloodshot eyes, a deep darkness lingered. It seemed like he hadn't had a good night's sleep in a long time. Now, trembling, Evan stopped me to show me something on his wrist. Oh, it was the Buddhist prayer beads that were thrown into the fountain at his birthday party. I had ground them for half a year, treated as trash, and thrown away. Tantra. Lily, I spent the night in the fountain. There were 18 in total, and I made sure to retrieve every single one. I ignored him, turning away from him. Evan grabbed my left hand without letting me refuse, forcing me to open my palm. A cold necklace was thrust into my hand, his eyes bloodshot, his throat almost choking up. I drained the pond, turned over the mud for 3 days, just to find it. Lily, please continue to wear it for me. Okay. I forcefully shook off his hand, and the necklace fell to the ground at my feet. The once clean silver was now covered in dust. Evan seemed to lose all his strength in an instant, kneeling at my feet, reaching out to pick it up. Evan, that's all in the past now. My words made him hunch his back, frozen in place. After a while, 2 teardrops fell into the dust. Evan began to almost frantically beg for my forgiveness. He grabbed Mia by the hair, forcing her to kneel in front of me. Mia no longer had her previous arrogance. It seemed like she had been through a hard time during this period. Her once haughty face was now full of humility and cautious attempts to please. Mia's family background was far inferior to the Harper family, making it easy for Evan to control her. She cried with tears streaming down her face, kneeling before me. From those deliberate approaches, to the covert instigations, to the stolen letters, intentionally spilled tea, and deliberately rolled stairs. One by one, she recounted everything from her mouth. Before I could react, Evan kicked her to the ground, and Mia crawled to my feet with her disheveled hair, grabbing onto my skirt. Lily, I know I was wrong. Please forgive me. With his eyes bloodshot and about to make some extreme move, I stepped forward to stop him. Evan, you are much more despicable than Mia. Seeing him standing there stunned, his face gradually turning pale, I added a few more words. Throughout, that's how I've always felt. Mia made mistakes, she provided an outlet for your emotions, but the one who truly hurt me has always been you. Evan, you are just the same now, using Mia as a vessel for your emotional release. You and her, I will never forgive. In fact, Evan and I were the same kind of people. Stubborn. Stubborn enough to make a decision and never look back. After that day, Evan became more cautious, obsessively seeking my forgiveness, but not daring to come close to me again. Even when it snowed, he stood outside all night, braving the wind and doing things for me. Evan's dad called me, his words filled with sighs. As the recovery period slowly passed, under Alex's guidance, I picked up the piano again. There were hidden injuries in my fingers, needing some adjustment. I practiced for 3 months, and it was already late winter outside, from the initial intermittent playing to gradually regaining the original feeling. Evan was always listening downstairs. The sound of the piano reached outside, entering his ears. The sharp blade he had thrust into me now felt like a boomerang piercing his own heart. I wonder how long he stood outside listening to me play. Until the next day when I left, his black coat and hair were already covered in a layer of snow, his face paler and more haggard than the snow itself. Evan, stop torturing yourself and don't appear in front of me anymore. You know, I can't turn back. Those words struck him so hard that his face turned almost transparent, his hand clutching his chest. Tonight, I returned to the orchestra and back on stage. I invited Alex to be in the audience, but he insisted on coming to pick me up. In the cold winter of December, Alex somehow got a bouquet of lilies. When he handed me the fragrant and pure white lilies, he whispered a message. Welcome back to happiness. I smiled as I accepted the flowers, and I also accepted Alex's good wishes. Evan was completely ignored by both of us. What is your relationship with Lily? This dry, pitiful, and cautiously inquiring question made me notice Evan's lips were already cracked and peeling, with a spot that was slightly bleeding. Alex looked coldly at Evan and replied indifferently, I was the one pursuing her. At the charity banquet, Evan disdainfully said Alex was out of his league with me. Now, Alex stood in front of him, telling him that he was pursuing me. It's time. Get in the car. Alex moved to the other side, telling him that he was pursuing me. It's time. Get in the car. Alex moved to the other side, gently opening the car door for me. He and Evan were two different characters. Actually, at the charity banquet, when Evan's car lights arrogantly blinded my eyes, what I saw in front of me was our first meeting. The sunlight had dazzled me, and Alex stood up to close the blinds for me. My colleagues in the orchestra put up a banner welcoming my return. In casual conversation, I heard that during my absence, Mia had been fired for bullying other colleagues, causing quite a stir. She left the group and won't be appearing again. Without a doubt, this was Evan's doing. If Mia were to appear in front of me again, it would only serve as a constant reminder to me and to Evan of all the things they did to me. The long-lost spotlight shone on me, bringing a hint of warmth. I closed my eyes, stretched my fingers, and the sound of the piano flowed like water. My soul was in the clouds. The audience fell into a long silence, then erupted into thunderous applause. Backstage, I held the bouquet of lilies and took a photo with Alex. A colleague helping with the photo couldn't help but exclaim, "Such a perfect match!" The last note was awkwardly choked in my throat. Evan appeared behind us, a hint of light pink beneath his eyes. The frost of winter spread, and others discreetly left the theater. Evan handed me a crystal trophy. "Lily, congratulations on your successful performance." His throat trembled up and down twice, as if swallowing a lump. "I found the pieces of your trophy, restored it to its original state." I thought it was snow falling on his head before. Now, as the light flashed, I discovered that he was actually quite young, yet had gray hair. I sighed and didn't take it. "Evan, this trophy doesn't hold any meaning for me anymore. I haven't liked you for a long time." In that moment, Evan's expression turned blank. He seemed like someone suddenly struck with tinnitus, covering his ears tightly, painfully crouching down. Like a beast losing its mate, Evan hoarsely questioned, "How can you forgive me?" His hoarse voice penetrated through the desolation. "How can you forgive me?" Tears slid down his swollen eyes. "Lily, I don't want to lose you. I can't be without you." Evan's dad told me that every time Evan hurt me, he also felt deep pain and conflict within. A few days ago, Evan got drunk like a fish and cried in his dad's arms all night. He said that when I went to the hospital for a checkup, Evan kept staring at me. He even used his connections to get me an appointment with Alex. As the most renowned surgeon in the city, Alex was in high demand, yet I easily got an appointment. I never thought about Evan's involvement in this. But what difference did it make? The harm he caused me can never be undone. I thought about our first meeting, the closeness and fondness I felt for Evan. Sadly, I realized I truly no longer liked him. "Evan, stop pestering me." Evan stood up dejectedly, walked out listlessly, as if his soul had been ripped away. I couldn't quite shake off the burden. My emotions still weighed down. The theater emptied, and Alex and I walked past the curtains, preparing to leave. But he stopped me. "Lily, I can actually play a bit of piano too. Would you like to listen?" I felt a spark of interest and nodded. Alex and I sat side by side at the piano, his hands fair and slender, joints distinct. The hands that wielded a scalpel could also dance nimbly on the keys. It was a familiar tune, Chopin's final masterpiece. "Do you still remember when I mentioned if you particularly liked the piano because of someone?" He smiled, turning his face towards me to ask. The first time I heard this piece played was in the hospital. There was only one hospital in this city with a piano placed in the lobby. It was the hospital where my mother was admitted after being diagnosed with a terminal illness years ago. I tried to search my memories, but Alex chuckled. When I was a child, afraid of pain, crying nonstop in the hospital after fracturing my leg, no one could comfort me. It was a girl who played this piece for me. At that moment, I forgot to cry. Her parents stood not far away, clapping proudly. Later, when I saw her again, I recognized her at a glance. He was describing our past encounters. A slight smile unconsciously rose at the corner of my mouth. In a daze, I recalled that period of time, filled with white walls and the strong scent of disinfectant. My mother held my hand and in her final days told me to stay strong. "Mother, I have done it. I have been strong enough, brave enough, and crossed the hurdle named setback. But at this moment, I hadn't quite sorted out my feelings to start liking someone again. Alex understood this empathetically. He kindly told me that Evan's pursuit of me was sincere. He asked me not to feel burdened or to respond immediately. He would give me time, having enough patience to wait for my decision. For now, I just need to consider you a reliable friend. I found that Alex truly possessed a kind of magic. He made the interaction between two people comfortable and easy. Returning to the band was just the first step. My next step was to win the championship in the international competition coming soon. To everyone's surprise, Evan did something almost obsessive. The Harper family made its fortune in the entertainment industry, primarily in record distribution. Evan locked himself away for half a month and wrote a song with the most famous production team. Featuring a distinctive melody, it heavily utilized all 88 keys. In just a few days, it became the hottest new song of the moment. The song was titled Late. On the night of its release, at the repeated urging of Evan's dad, I reluctantly went to the event. A journalist brought the microphone to his lips. May I ask, why did you use a significant number of 88 keys in creating the song? Evan's gaze fell on my face through the crowd. That's because I wanted to tell someone that we should say goodbye to the past and start anew. I listened to this dialogue impassively. The journalist sensed the gossip in the air and wanted to ask more questions, but Evan had already taken his place at the piano. As the melodious piano notes filled the air, he played much better than the first time we met. I closed my eyes to listen. The faint noise around me made me open my eyes again. In that moment, I saw that Evan's fingers were already covered in blood. He was a madman. He had placed blades on the 88 keys. With each strike of the keys, his hands had more cuts, and he was playing in an almost self-destructive manner. The white keys gradually turned red with blood, leaving everyone stunned. As the piece ended, in the silence, Evan stood up. He took the microphone and knelt down in the spotlight in my direction. "Lily, I offer you my hand. Can you forgive me?" Evan was truly insane. I faced all of this in disbelief, overwhelmed by the tidal wave of gossip. Someone handed me the microphone. Tears welled up in my eyes. People thought I was moved, but the words that came out of my mouth were cold. "Evan, you are as selfish as ever." Someone told me that with music, the ears need to feel before the heart does. Evan, love is the same way. For me, you were once a scab on my heart, which would bleed and fester when broken. But now, that scab has healed. Don't do meaningless things anymore, because in my heart, you are nothing. Evan, with blood all over his hands, listened to my words word by word. All the light in his eyes extinguished in an instant. As if his backbone had been ripped out, he fell down, tears streaming from his eyes. Staff members rushed to help him. I got up and left without looking back. Everyone watched in silence. After that day, Evan never appeared in front of me again. The incident that night caused a small commotion on the internet, but all voices eventually faded away. Perhaps the Harper family intervened, or maybe it was Alex. I didn't have time to think about it because I had more important things to focus on. The day I won the international piano competition, Alex personally presented me with flowers. The bouquet was of lilies, which I really liked. The winning piece was chosen from the sheet music my mother had left me. Finally, I understood why she waited for the right moment to have Evan's dad hand it to me. The emotions in the piece required experience to comprehend. Alex stood out among the award presenters in his white suit, looking exceptionally handsome. The white attire complemented his features perfectly. Standing next to me in my white gown, we looked like a couple in matching outfits. It was hard not to suspect that it was intentional. At least 3 people had already praised us for being a well-matched pair. On the elevated awards stage, Alex and I embraced each other. In a moment of daze, I caught a glimpse of a familiar figure. It had been a long time since I last saw Evan and Mia. Mia, I heard, had retired from the industry, and their family had faced bankruptcy, completely disappearing from the scene. As for Evan, we both silently avoided each other. I still visited Evan's dad often. After all, he raised me and was like a second father to me. I could sense Evan watching me from behind the curtains upstairs every time, just like the day I left the Harper house. But it was comforting to know that he had finally stopped torturing himself to seek my forgiveness. The figure that flashed by below the stage, I couldn't be sure if it was him or not. But even if it was him, it no longer mattered to me. I could hear the sound of Alex's heartbeat. his hidden shyness, and excitement. After the awards ceremony, Alex and I drove to the cemetery. The bouquet of lilies in my arms was placed in front of the grave. It was the first time I had brought Alex to see my parents. "This is Alex. I really like him." I took the hand of the person beside me, feeling their warmth like jade. He paused for a moment, turned to look at me, his ears slightly reddening, but his grip on my hand tightened, asserting dominance over mine. A gentle breeze stirred the petals of the lilies. Then it lifted the hems of our clothes, as if someone had gently embraced us.